Hey guys, this is Making It Work. I'm Jimmy. If you haven't been here before, I appreciate you tuning in today. This video is going to be about reducing comebacks and ways that you can be a little more effective in the shop and kind of lower those comeback problems. We all have them, no matter how experienced you are. Sometimes no matter how careful you are, you can still have comebacks. But today is going to be about how to reduce those, keep them to a minimum so that's at a tolerable rate. Some people beat themselves up pretty bad about it and can't sleep all night when they have a few comebacks or a comeback, but it's part of our industry and it's something that happens. So I want to take a minute to say get well to Kentucky Ballistics. I don't know if you watch any of the gun channels, but he's a good guy. He's pretty funny. I like his sense of humor with his and all that stuff. But anyway, he had his 50 BMG rifle malfunction on him and he nearly got killed. His main artery was punctured by a fragment that came off the gun when the round that he had in the gun was about 4 times or 3 times more powerful than normal. Caused his gun to explode. So anyway, prayers to Kentucky Ballistics. If you haven't seen his video about where he got injured, check it out. And you guys can check that out and see for yourself. And like I said, he's a good guy, so he looks like he's doing okay. No panic, but it's definitely a scary thing. I mean, the number one thing would be taking a few extra minutes to look through your work, as far as torquing wheels and things like that. We all know that. But even if you're a flat rate mechanic like I am, you still want to take a few minutes looking at your hose clamps, looking at your air filter box clips, all those kind of things, all those little nuts and bolts you loosened. Just take a few minutes, look around your engine compartment or your brake job or whatever it may be. Make sure that all your bolts are tightened, all your clamps are tightened, all those things are tightened. It's worth a few minutes, so you don't have the aggravation of seeing that car come back in the shop with a problem right after you work on it. Another thing I like to do to make sure I keep my comebacks to a minimum is have a buddy come over and double check some things. Maybe I've overlooked something. If I do a big job, and if we're not crazy busy, I know it seems a little bit difficult to pull off, but if you got someone you can count on at the shop, a friend or a co-worker that you know you can rely on, have them take a minute to look over your work and see if you might have missed something real quick. It may seem like some people might feel a little bit like it's demeaning or beneath them and they're such good techs they don't need any help, but I find it's best if you could just have somebody, hey, take a quick minute, look over my job here, just take a quick look through it, make sure I didn't miss something. I really appreciate it. And then when that guy finishes the job, he can have you do the same thing. It might seem a little silly, but it'll only take a minute and it may save your butt. One of the biggest things for reducing comebacks is road testing the car when you're done with it. Obviously, you put a battery in a car, you do a tune-up, throttle body service, induction service, something like that. It's really important you road test that car. You're going to want to pull all the carbon off the valves, and you want to pull your induction cleaner out of the intake manifold. It tends to pool in the intake. When you first drive it and that big old puff of smoke comes out of it and smokes for a little while going down the road, you don't want the customer to be doing that. You're going to do that yourself. So even if you're paid flat rate, take the extra 5 or 10 minutes to road test the car, make sure everything's correct. You might need to have an idle relearn, which is going to require driving the car. Could be anything. You want to seat brake pads after you've done brake work, things like that. A lot of people don't really put much credence in road testing, but I think road testing is really important. If you're not road testing the car when you're done with some work, with major work on it, then the customer's road testing it for you. And I mean, the chances of you having a problem with that are way higher if you haven't taken a few minutes to road test it yourself and you're going to let the customer do it for you. I mean, yeah, you saved a few minutes, you got that job out of here and you got on to the next one. That's great. I mean, there's nothing more depressing than seeing that car you just worked on turn around and come back in the driveway a half an hour or an hour later, or the next morning it's in the parking lot. Road testing the car is really important, especially depending on certain things you've done to the car. I mean, you put a rearview mirror on the windshield, you don't have to road test that. Maybe if you put a starter motor in, you might not think you have to road test it, but did you have motor mounts out of the car? Did you do some kind of major work that you want to road test that car and make sure it's going to be good for them? So that's a big thing. Don't let the customer road test your work. Road test it yourself and see what they might have had happen to them when they left. You know, no matter how experienced you are, I've been doing this 40 years, once in a while, keep this between us, once in a while you may have missed something. You know, you have to loosen that front motor mount by the radiator just to get the motor a little bit higher if you're going to do seals on the cam stuff like that. So it's really important to road test your cars after you're done with your work. Another thing to do is, after you do cooling system repairs, pressure test the system again before you heat it all up and get it all hot. Throw your pressure tester on there. Just take a minute, put the pressure tester on the cooling system, and try to see if there's any leaks before you get it hot. If you missed a clamp or a hose, or if there's another leak, sometimes you'll fix a major leak and then there'll be a little bit of a leak from a hose that didn't show up before because you had a major leak. Throw the cooling system tester on there again. Put 10 or 15 pounds of pressure on there, probably closer to 15 pounds of pressure on there, whatever the radiator cap's rated for, and make sure that you don't have any major leaks before you even start the engine up. That way it's cool while you gotta, if you have to tend to something that you might have overlooked the first time or that may have crept up since the major repair. A check engine light diagnosis and a repair based on your trouble codes or symptoms you found, like EGR, P0401. You took the EGR valve off, you cleaned all the ports out, put the EGR valve back together so you're pretty sure it's fixed, or take it for a road test when you're done and check for pending codes. Because a lot of people don't realize, if you have certain codes, EGR, mass airflow sensor codes, things like that, there could be other problems. But when the vehicle sets a code for certain things, it's not going to continue monitoring other things. So when you fix one code, it's very, very possible that there's something else wrong, but the system will stop checking those things because of the code you had. So now you fix that code, you send them down the road, and the customer comes back a couple of days later saying, after I drove it a couple of times, I got a check engine light again. So you put your scanner on it and you see it has an oxygen sensor code or a catalytic converter efficiency code, which it wouldn't set that code if it was, you know, a problem with the EGR valve or a mass airflow sensor. It may disregard those other things and stop running monitors until you fix the initial problem. So then it's going to show up on the customer. So real important, clear all your codes after your repair, perform your road test either with the scanner on it or put the scanner back on it when you get back to the shop, and see what pending codes you have. A lot of guys are kind of weak in that area because we're flat rate, I guess. You're in a kind of a rush, so you end up not wanting to take that extra few minutes to run through your monitors and make sure your monitors have set and make sure there's no pending codes, because otherwise the customer's going to get that nasty check engine light. You know that causes sunburn on the knuckles when that check engine light comes on. So you got to be real careful with that. So that's my recommendation. Comebacks for brake noises and brake pulsations, or for improper braking force. After you do brake job, especially if you do all four wheels, the brake pads are going to have to be seated. So it may take, you know, half a dozen stops at a moderate pedal pressure to get the brake pads to seat properly. If you don't road test your brake job after you're done with it, then the customer is going to road test it and seat the pads. And the first couple of times they hit the brakes are going to feel like they're 30% of the normal amount of effectiveness. So you definitely want to road test your brake work and make sure your pads are seated so that the customer doesn't have to do the seating for you. Really important. That's probably one of the number one things. When you do brakes, you're going to verify there's no pulsation afterwards, no weird noises like a splash shield that might have ended up touching, especially if you had to hammer rotors off or something above the rust belt. Really important is to make sure you road test your brake work so that the customers don't have to do that. Sometimes to get views, I guess, or likes and subscribes, and mostly views, I guess, you have to have a half-naked woman doing yoga in a thong or something like that. But we're not going there with this channel. We're just going to try to do toolbox content, tool reviews, and I want to talk about things from my experiences over the 40 years I've been doing this. Trying not to make them too long-winded, try to keep them a little shorter for you guys. But I've been through a lot of trials and tribulations over all the years I've been doing this. So if I can help some of the younger guys out, or the less experienced guys, or the guys that need a refresher like I do, I go on YouTube and I watch videos to see what other people are up to and see the kind of things I might need a refresher on myself. You know, even after all these years, I still learn something every day. So that's the point of most of these videos, where I'm in front of my toolbox talking to you guys. And so that's why I really appreciate you tuning in and watching the channel. I'm going to try to keep the content brief and effective for you guys and avoid some of the trials and tribulations, or at least, I guess they're not really avoidable, but we can reduce them. We can take the trials and tribulations and we can just make them into manageable trials and tribulations while we're all trying to improve this industry. It is getting technical at a rapid rate. We all kind of work together to try to do that. Guys like Scanner Danner and a lot of the other guys that I like to watch, South Main Auto. There's a lot of great channels out there that you can get some good information on. So I'm going to try to do some more of that stuff. I'm going to do some more diagnosis, electrical, software programming, stuff like that in some upcoming videos. So make sure you click like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. And if you made it to the end, I'll tell you a quick story about when I was 17 or 18 years old, and I had a 69 GTO, and I raced my friend Billy Worth. He had a 79 Camaro, and we were racing down Lincoln Avenue, probably going 90 or 100 miles an hour. I think the statute of limitations has run out now, but we bumped doors and fenders, and he actually tried to run me off the road a little bit. As we got to the grass, I stopped trying to avoid him. He didn't want me to pass him. I was passing him in my GTO, and he didn't like that, so he kind of tried to move over and run me off the road, but I didn't let off. When I got to where I had two tires touching the grass at about 80 or 90 miles an hour, I let off the gas and I stopped moving over, and that's when we bumped. His dad came down making all kinds of threats, but he had been drinking. So no harm, no foul. My GTO had a couple little dings, and I knocked him out and reprimed it because it was all in primer. I was doing body work, getting it ready for paint anyway. His Camaro was a little dinged up, but the fact that he was had been drinking a little bit, we were coming back from Riverhead Raceway on Long Island. It kind of worked out for nobody got hurt, but that's a little story from my past, just for you guys that made it to the end. I really appreciate you guys. That's a real big deal for YouTube if you watch it to the end. So we'll see you guys in the next video. A bullet with my name on it.